Thank you, Peter. Okay, tonight our main speaker is Rosemary. Please help me welcome Rosemary to the stage.
And my sobriety date is, I don't know, 1997, July 18th, somewhere around there, which makes me about 21 and a half, which I bet some of you guys are 21 and a half, aren't you? How many are born in 1997? Yeah. Before 1997? Yeah. Peter in the background. So the 12 traditions, and tradition number 5 is a primary purpose of Alcoholics Anonymous is to take a message to still sick and suffering alcoholics. And I'll say, because this is an AA meeting, I speak mostly just to alcohol, because I do have lots of other things that I'm interested in, but I'm just going to keep it with alcohol. So if you can follow that, track, I'm pretty sure you can. Just fill in the blanks wherever you want, because there's a part in the ABCs where it talks about, let's see, what does it say in the ABCs? That I was powerless, so it's alcohol. What's the ABCs? Do you guys know the ABCs? And my life becomes unmanageable, and what is it? No human power can relieve me of my fill in the blank. Really? Because alcoholism and then whatever else you want to put in there. So that's kind of how I do it. But the primary purpose here in AA is to bring this message to sick and suffering alcoholics. I wonder, are any of you sick and or suffering recently? Because it's not just about drinking. Because when we put down the alcohol, the problem for me is that this thing just keeps going and going and going. And I use the alcohol and those other things to just sort of, quiet it down. And it really, honest to God, it took a lot more than the alcohol to quiet this down. And so drinking that much alcohol causes a lot of problems, And so I had a lot of problems. But I drank for a long time, so I'll just give you a little bit. I agree that a drunk-a-log is really unnecessary. I'm pretty sure you would be rather doing something else on a Wednesday night than sitting in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And if you drank like I drank, you're here because you couldn't stop. I couldn't stop. I started drinking when I was about 15. I grew up in New York City, and it took me so long to get to drinking because there was no place to go to the bathroom when you're a girl hanging out on the street corners and you're too young to get into the bars. That wasn't until 18, and we started sneaking in at 16. But there's those gap years between 14 and 15 where, you really couldn't drink and be on the streets. So we did other things while the guys drank because it was easier for them. So I really started drinking in earnest at about 15 years old and started sneaking into bars and drinking in the streets and drinking any chance that I got. I come from a big Irish Catholic family in New York City, and that's pretty much my story. And if you are Irish or Catholic or from New York City, you know that any of those things would give you a good reason to be an alcoholic, because that's where it comes from. That's where it started. And so I am an artist. I've been an artist all my life. I've been a freelance artist, and I've been a freelance working artist for about 42 years now. And my specialty is World War II aviation art, and I painted leather jackets, and I painted airplanes, and I painted scenes of guys' stories from World War II, and I've had a lot of interest in that field for a long time. I like fast things, I like loud things, and cars and motorcycles. I rode motorcycles for years, and pretty much anything you put in front of me, I'm going to try. And that went for substances and, of course, alcohol. And so I had a lot of fun for a long time. People go, I never really had a good time drinking. I had a great time drinking for a really long time, except I kind of overshot the runway. I just never really knew about moderation. I really never knew when to stop. And so it was fun. It was fun for a really long time, and then it was a little trouble, and then there was a little less fun, a little more trouble, and then the trouble started to overtake the fun, and then it was pretty much always trouble. And I didn't always get into trouble, but whenever I got into trouble, I was always drinking. And it didn't really ever occur to me that those two things had anything to do with each other. It took me a long time to put those two together. It never occurred to me that alcohol was the problem. I thought alcohol was the solution, because anytime I had a problem, I would drink around it, over it, at it, about it, and it seemed for me to work for a while. Until I got into trouble. And I got into a lot of trouble. And I got into the same kind of trouble you guys did. Because when I was your ages, whatever that is, wherever you are in your life, I've already been there. I'm probably one of the top 3 oldest people in this room. I'm running on 60 now, and I can still remember what it was like. And I actually don't have any desire to go back. Been there, done that, learned way too much to ever want to go back and try it again, because even if I were sober, I wouldn't want to do it, because for me, it took every single thing, every single minute, every single thing that I did for me to get where I am today. Where I am today is all of the parts of me that learned all of the things that I learned, by being out there and doing the things that I did and doing them, I made a lot of mistakes, but I also learned a lot. So I have no regrets. The book talks about not being able to, look back and wish that your past was any different and shut the door on it and have a regret. I can honestly say, I'm not stupid. I would have done things differently if I knew, but I didn't know. I did the best I could with what I had, and I made some pretty good mistakes. But the fact is, when I was really ready to say, this thing beat me, I was ready to surrender. There was no question about it for me. I don't want to go out and prove to myself more times that I'm going to get back in that position that I was last time when I got here. Because I was pretty beaten down, When I got into these rooms, I was so beaten that I was willing to listen to whatever it was that you guys said. And really, the last thing I wanted to hear about was this higher power thing, because, to me, growing up the way I did, a higher power was this kind of punishing father figure. And I didn't really want one of those. I already had one of those. I didn't really want another one. And so I wasn't really that interested. And yet I knew that what I was doing wasn't working, and something that was going on in here was working. And I wasn't really sure what it was, but I wanted to find out what it was. And so I asked somebody to sponsor me. She was about this big, literally. And I was scared to death of her because she was tough, and I felt like when I asked her, what should I do? And she told me something, I'm going to listen. I'm going to try it, because my way wasn't working. So I was willing to do something different, because how I look at it now is like, how many times do I want to go back out there and keep trying it my way? Like, what am I trying to prove? What am I going to give up? I'm going to give up alcohol to have this whole new way of life that I don't even know what that means. I don't know what that's going to bring me. I don't know what's going to offer me. And meanwhile, they talk about contempt prior to investigation. How do I know what that is until I try it? And all this place is asking me to do is to put down the drink. How long can you do it? Can you do it for 24 hours? Can you do it for a day, a week, a month, whatever? How about we start with literally 5, 10, 15 minutes at a time? Just don't pick it up. Bill W. sat on the side of his mattress, holding on to that mattress, watching that clock, ticking away, 5, 10, 15 minutes at a time, just trying to get through that drink. He was just like you. He drank just like you. It was another time. It was another place. It was probably your, great-grandfather, probably he would be. But the fact is that we were all in this space in our lives where we were in our teens or our 20s or our 30s. And if you're lucky and you get to stick around long enough, you'll know what it's like to be in your 40s and 50s. And I'll tell you something, hitting 60 is like the best thing that ever happened to me. I kept thinking like, oh, it sucks. I hear people talking all the time. It's like, oh, I'm getting old. I'm getting wrinkles. I'm getting this. I'm getting that. And it's like, you know what? I'm still breathing. I still got a chance. I'm still going. And life keeps getting better and better. And it's not because of the outside stuff. It's not because of the stuff that I have. I do have a Ferrari in my driveway. It's not mine, but it's in my driveway because I'm living on somebody else's property because I'm a transient. I don't have a home address anymore. I have a post office box in South Jersey, in Cape May, New Jersey. That's where I call home. But I'm officially, according to the IRS, I'm a transient. Because after my kid graduated college and he left home, he was gone, as soon as he went to college, I knew he wasn't coming home. But I kept a house long enough for him to come home to if he wanted to. And when he got his own place, he lives in D.C., he got a job, good, see ya. I gave away my house, I gave away every single thing that I owned. And if it didn't fit in my car, I didn't take it with me. I got a storage space back in New Jersey, about a 5x5 closet space, and it's got my tax papers in it, it's got my photo albums, it's got my journals, it's got some warm jackets and clothes and stuff like that. But for the most part, I gave it all away. Because at this point in my life, what's important to me is not the stuff that I worked so hard to get. for me, I'm pretty radical. It's pretty crazy. I do a lot from the road. I work from the road. I am not painting for the last couple of years. I'm doing more digital art, and I do a lot of like visual promotion work. But I still do that because I want to be on the road, and I don't want to stay in any one place. I've always been kind of, always had that wanderlust. I went to art school in Manhattan. I graduated, and the day after I graduated, I moved down to the Virgin Islands, and I lived down there for a few years, and I did my work from there, and then I moved out to San Francisco, which I love. What a great party town that is. Holy crap, is that a great party town. And I lived out there for 3 or 4 years, and then I moved back to New York, and, I lived up in Flagstaff. I lived in Prescott for about 5 years. Now then I was in Jersey, down at Cape May, which is like a resort beach town, and now where am I? I'm in Scottsdale now, and I've been in Scottsdale for, about a year, but I travel from Scottsdale and I go into different places to go get my work. And that's what works for me, because I tell you, everywhere I go, and I speak all the places that I go, I see you guys, like you're all over the place. Like you alcoholics and you young alcoholics, you're everywhere. Your names are different, your faces are a little different, you all dress the same. But you guys are all out there like you're the same. And it's the same thing with me. It's like the people that I go and I see down in Scottsdale, they're the same people that I see back in Jersey. They're the same people that I see when I go to California. It's like we all have the same story, because when it comes to alcoholism, big surprise, there are no original stories. It's always the same story with alcoholism. If you're an alcoholic and you drank like I did, there's no new stories under the sun. The only thing that's different is the details. So me needing to be special is just my ego that's trying to set me apart from you guys and from God and from AA, and it just wants me to be different. I'm special. You don't understand. It's like, no, here's the problem. You don't understand. We know who you are, we know where you've been, we know what you've done, and nothing, I guarantee you, nothing you're going to tell me is going to surprise me. I have heard enough of those fifth steps to hear everything. Like, seriously, you are not going to surprise me. And the thing is that my ego needs to be special. I need you to think that I'm something special. So we try to outdo each other here. I drank a quart of whiskey. I drank a gallon of whiskey. I mean, like, who are you trying to top? You know what I mean? It's like, look, we all drank way too much or we wouldn't be here. I don't need to prove to you what I drank or how I drank or when I drank or what I drank. I want to tell you, I drank the crappiest stuff or I drank the best stuff. It took me just a little bit to get that crazy, and it took me this much to get crazy. It's like, we don't really care. Those are the details. We really don't care. Because the most important person in the room, contrary to popular opinion, you probably heard this a lot, the newcomer is the most important person in the room. I don't believe that for a second. I'm the most important person in the room. Because if I'm not taking care of myself and my sobriety, I got nothing to offer you guys. I got nothing. It's a bunch of crap. I'm not here to impress anybody. I'm here to stay sober. Because I never want to go back out there. I never want to live the way I lived. And it looked really good for a long time, and it was real impressive, and I was having a lot of fun, and I was drinking some good stuff, and I was living in some highfalutin places, and I was driving and riding some really beautiful vehicles, and I was going all over the place, doing anything I wanted. I had all of that. And it just crashed and burned, just like everything else. Everybody crashes and burns. It's just like, from what level of the elevator are you going to crash from? So my ego is really the thing that's my biggest struggle. I have an acronym for ego that I really like, is easing God out, because ego is not just like, I'm so great and I'm so wonderful and I'm so tough. Ego is also like, I'm not worthy, I'm a piece of junk, I don't deserve this. Your ego doesn't care if you think you're good or not. It's just interested in keeping you separate. It's interested in cutting you out of the herd, because once it cuts you out of the herd and gets you away from this pack that we're in these meetings and these groups and these friendships and this fellowship, it gets to pick you off much easier, because I get trapped out there by myself and I'm stuck in my head. Because drinking is not the problem. Drinking is just a symptom. The problem is, it's up here. It's my thinking. And I don't think that I need you, and I think that I can do this on my own. And the first word of the first step is the most important word in this program. Because if I don't have you, I'm out there by myself, I'm in trouble. And if I think I can do this without some kind of a power greater than myself, so, in the old days, they still do. I was just in New York a couple of days ago, and they have on the liquor stores spirits. That's what they call liquor, Oh, but what do we call higher power, God, spirit. it's all different names for God, all different names for higher power in the book. I don't know how many descriptions, 10 or 12 different names that they use. And it doesn't really matter. I don't really care what you call God. I don't care if you have a hard time with God. I get it. I had a hard time too. But the fact of the matter is that there's something greater than myself that can restore me to sanity, which is to think clearly, like, this is not working. I got to do something different. So when I walk into a room and I see a light switch on the wall, and I flip that switch, I expect that light to go on. I just expect it. And it's electricity. I don't know how it works. I'm not going to stand in front of that light switch and wait. Well, I can't, use the light switch until I figure out how electricity works, I'm just going to wait until I figure it out. Let me figure this out. It's like, and I know it goes through the wires, and how does that work? And I got to get a book, Google, whatever. I don't care. I'm going to walk in the room. I'm going to flip the switch, and I'm going to expect the lights to go on. And that's how I use God. I don't understand God. I've been around a long time. I don't understand God. I don't have to understand God. All I know is that God is, and God does something, and I call it God because it's short and it's easy to spell, and I write in my journal a lot, so I don't really care what you call it. Electricity, call it whatever you want. What language are you speaking? What do you want to call it? Doesn't matter. Where do you get it from? It doesn't matter. APS, Con Ed, Pacific Electric, it doesn't matter where you get it. This is all details. They don't matter. But the fact of the matter is that there is a power greater than alcohol that can help restore me to sanity. And so when I'm running low, it's just like my phone. And I know you guys know this. My phone is going to run out. I need to find that power source. And I'll do anything to find that power source. I'll go in and I'll buy a cup of coffee so I can plug into that power source. I'll go sit in somebody's car. I'll do anything to get that phone juiced up again. I get that phone juiced up again, and then I can go back out. And I know exactly how long that battery is going to last. I know exactly, how far it is until I can get to the next place where I can juice it up, whatever it is that it takes. And it's the same thing here. It's like, what it takes to get rejuiced. And I'm not talking about alcohol. I'm talking about that power that we get, that we connect to with a higher power. And it gives us that source that we need to be able to say, I want to try something different. I want to see what it's like to live without dousing everything with alcohol. We come in here and we think, we shouldn't have to feel like, somebody died. No, people die. That's life on life's terms, So, I got in an accident. I lost my job. Oh, I shouldn't have to feel. It's like this king baby attitude. Like, I shouldn't have to feel these feelings. But the fact is that everybody has to feel these feelings. We've just been dousing it with alcohol and other things for so long, we don't know how to do it. So we come in here and we're offered the choice to show you there's another way to do it. But just like anything, you got to learn, So you walk into a math class in college or high school, it's algebra class, and there's an algebra problem up on the wall, and you walk in and you go, oh, shoot, I have no idea how to even start dealing with that problem. And the teacher will say, well, where are you supposed to be? And you go, oh, I'm in Math 101. You go, oh, you got to go back and you got to learn addition and subtraction, multiplication. You got to start with the basics and learn the principles of mathematics. And as you start to learn those principles, you can apply them to the problem. So one day you'll walk in and you'll understand how to apply them to that problem of algebra that's up on the board. It's the same thing with the steps. If you come in and you start on step 1, you stay on step 1. You don't talk about step 4. You don't talk about step 8. Oh, I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to say that. I'm never going to be that. You start on step 1, come in and you admit you're powerless. I was powerless over alcohol. My life was unmanageable. That powerlessness is that inside job. I said I wasn't going to do it and I did it anyway. I said I wasn't going to go there and I did it. I went there anyway. I said I wasn't going to drink it and I drank it anyway. It's that, how did that happen? I knew I didn't want to do it and I did it anyway. Like, what is that? I woke up this morning and I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to pick that up. And by noon, I'm all messed up again. Like, what is that? Nobody's doing it to you. It's like I'm telling myself I really don't want to do it and I really mean it, and yet I'm powerless. And then my life becomes unmanageable because the unmanageability is the outside manifestation of the inward powerlessness. The manifestation of the, powerlessness is my life becomes unmanageable. I lose the job, I lose the relationship, I lose the, the money, I lose the car, I lose my freedom, I get locked up, whatever. That's the unmanageability. And then in step 2, it talks about asking a power greater than myself, to help me, to restore me to sanity. And then the insanity is just doing it over and over again. It's a desire to change the past. I wished I hadn't done that. Too bad you did. So what? It's a desire to know the future. You're not going to know that. Intellectually, we understand that I can't change the past and I can't know the future, and yet I insist on it. And I keep myself in those places. And that's my ego trying to, mess with me, because anything to distract me from this stuff and from a higher power and from being here completely and turning myself over to this program, my ego is going to try to get in there and keep me separate. And so in step 3, I make a decision to turn my will and my life, which is just my thoughts and my actions. It's no great secret what will and life is. It's just my thoughts and my actions about anything. And I'm going to make a decision to turn it over to the care of God, as I don't really understand God at all. So it doesn't really matter, because it's like the electricity. It just is. So I'm just going to make a decision. And they talked about that there's 3 frogs on a log and one decides to jump off, and how many are left? There's 3, because he just made a decision. So I'm still not doing anything. I'm still just talking about it, But now comes step 4, and they're going to ask you, are you ready to move into the action steps? Are you ready to look at the unmanageability, look at the powerlessness? When I sponsor people, I have them write it down. You go back and you read that stuff that you wrote down, especially when you're desperate, which is a great place to start. And you go back and you look at that and you're like, man, I'm ready to do whatever you tell me to do. And I go into step 4 and I start writing. And step 4 is one of the greatest tools that this program has, especially that last column. It's not rocket science. It's not difficult. It's a simple set of tools that we have that help us to navigate the past and work our way into the future without alcohol and without repeating all of the things that we did that didn't work. So in step 4, it asks us to list our resentments. And resentments are just, feeling something. The Latin root word is sentire, which is, to feel. And then you put re in front of a word, and it's just to re-feel it. And every time I tell that story, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And it's like it's all stuck up in my head. And so I get resentments down, and I start to get fears down, and I go across that just in the book, just like that says. I don't have to write my whole life story. I just write down the name that I'm resentful toward, what it was about, and then check, check, check all across that. What did it affect? My ambition, my pride, my self-esteem, my pocketbook, all the things that are in the book. And then I have to stop and ask God to help me to remove that person, place, or thing from being the focus of my problem and asking, where am I to blame? So here's the gift of the 4th step. If I can see my part in this, then I can do something about that, because as long as I'm pointing my finger at something else outside of me as the problem, or another person outside of me, if only they would change, if only he would stop, if only she would give me what I wanted, if only the weather would be better, if only my boss, if only the money, whatever it is outside of myself. If I'm pointing outside of myself for something to make me feel better inside, I'm never going to get there, because I can't change all that. They say it's better to put on a pair of slippers than it's better to put on a pair of slippers than it is to carpet the whole world. I can't do anything about what's going on out there, but I can do something about what's going on in here. And this is how I do it with the steps. And so I start to ask, what's my part? Where was I selfish, self-seeking, frightened, dishonest? Most of the time dishonesty is not even about lying and cheating and stealing, which I did plenty of, but it's about the sin of omission. I didn't tell you what was going on with me. I was scared. I was angry. I was, whatever, and I didn't talk about it. I'm fine. And I would just go drink. So I have all these things that I'm building up, and I'm carrying them around, and I don't know what to do with them. I have no place to put them. And then the 4th step comes, and it offers you a place to put this stuff. And then we talk about it, with the fear inventory, and we talk about the sex and harms inventory. And it's not just sex. It's about how I use my sexuality. It's about how I think about sex. It's about, the attitude that I have and the ideas that I've been taught. There's a lot of stuff going on in here. I never stopped long enough to really take a look at this, especially on paper and sober. And so there's a lot to be offered when we're asking you to take a look at some of this stuff, because we've never stopped long enough to consider it. And so we talk to somebody else that's sober, that's been through these steps, and we ask for help, and we find people here that are safe. And I always try to tell people, one of the first things I say is, anything we talk about is confidential. So you might, tell me about your boyfriend, and then one day you see me talking to your boyfriend, and I'm laughing, and you're thinking, because my ego is thinking, oh, they're talking about me, and I can't trust her, and I'm never going to tell anybody, and you know what, I'm going to drink over that. And we just tell ourselves these messages, and it's like you got to find somebody you feel safe with, and you got to find somebody that's been through this and knows this process, and somebody that you want what they have. That looks like it works for you, and I would really like to find out how you did that. And I talk about it with a lot of the kids too. Years ago when they were doing a lot different kind of video games or something. I know with my son, it's like if he was playing a video game and he really wanted to get better at it, he would have no problem saying, "Hey, how'd you get to that level? How'd you do that?" You'll go look for help finding things that you really want to do. It's the same thing here. You talk to people in the rooms that have been there. And just say, hey, could you just tell me what your experience was with that step? What was it like for you? And step 5 is, talking to saying it to yourself. And I admit it. And I admit it to God. And I admit it to another person. And the freedom that comes from that, you're not going to know that until you do it. It's not available to you until you do it. And it's not available to you until you do the first 4 steps. You don't just jump to 5 and feel that feeling of before you're halfway through, you're going to know this freedom. And it's the freedom of the release of feeling like I'm a slave to alcohol, like I don't have a choice. When I drink, I don't have a choice. That's it. Everything goes out the window. Relationships, responsibilities, commitments, everything goes right out the window. And it happens time and time again. I'm not kidding myself. I know what happens if I pick up a drink. Everything goes right out the window. Whether I want to or not, it's going to be different this time. That's step 2. That's insanity. Because I'm doing the same thing over and over and expecting it to be different. It's not the way it works for me. It keeps going back to the same thing. And so in step 6, we're going to talk about the defects of character that I found in that last column in step 4. Where was I selfish, self-seeking, frightened, and dishonest? And I start to look at those things and I start to see how they affect me. And when you do that last column of step 4 with somebody in your 5th step, when you're talking to somebody and you start reading that stuff out loud, and all of a sudden there's this light bulb that goes on and goes, oh, you know what I'm starting to see? I'm starting to see my part in my own experience. I'm starting to see how I am the purveyor of my own misery. Like I never put together, when I do that, this happens. And every single time when that happens, then I get a resentment, or I get scared, or I get angry, and then it comes back on me. So as I give to the world, Al-Anon says, the world gives to me. I never saw that before. And I'm always looking for something out here to make me feel better. I got this hole in my gut that I tried to fill with drinking and drugs and men and money and material possessions and moving around. And nothing ever worked until I found a relationship with a power greater than myself that kind of fit that square peg in a square hole, and it fit and it locked. And all of a sudden, things started to make sense. But they don't make sense as long as alcohol is my higher power. So I really need to work on this idea about a higher power. I'm not talking about religion, I'm talking about spirituality. So I'm going to look at these defects, I'm going to admit, yeah, I got them. I can see how they affect me. I see that in the 5th step. And then I'm going to ask God to help me. I'm going to pray for the willingness to be willing to even think about being willing, because sometimes I'm so far from it. I can't imagine my life without, these defects that I've been using. They're coping mechanisms. And I've never stopped long enough to really think about, are they working? I mean, they've been working for so long, I never really stopped to think. Do I still need them? I mean, I might have used them when I was growing up in an alcoholic home. I might have used them in an abusive relationship. I might have used them in the home that I was living in. Do I really need them anymore? Are they serving me? I'm taking an inventory. What works, what doesn't work, what's outdated, what does work. I'm going to keep it. And then I'm going to take those defects and I'm going to ask God to remove them, and I'm going to ask him to entirely remove them and replace them with God's characteristics. So I'm not going to just have this a nature abhors a vacuum. So I'm going to ask you to take away my fear, and then I'm left with what? If I don't do something with that space and fill it with faith or fill it with something greater than myself, I'm going to have that fear come back, and it's going to be worse when it comes back. Just like we were talking before the meeting, when you go back out and then you stop for a while and then you relapse, when you go back out and you relapse, it's like you pick up right where you left off, and it just gets worse really quickly. And it's the same thing with these defects. So I'm going to ask God to remove them. I'm going to ask him to replace them with fear with faith, dishonesty with honesty. And that's how I work on step 7. And I'm going to ask him to help me because I can't do it by myself. And then in step 8, I'm just going to make a list of the people that I harmed. And by the time I get to step 8, it's really not so hard, because I could see how I really stepped on other people's toes and they retaliated. And I can really start to see how the things that I did really hurt other people, confused other people, damaged other people, harmed other people. And now I'm starting to think that wasn't so cool. I wouldn't like it if it was done to me. And if I want to clean up my life, I really need to be able to see this stuff clearly and not pretend like I got the blinders on, oh no, what I do when I'm drinking doesn't bother anybody else. It's it's not true, and you know it. Our motives are so clear to us, but when we drink, we cover them up. And I know that when I'm hurting somebody, I know that they're hurt, and I know that I wouldn't want it done to me, and I act like, I don't care, what do I care, big deal, But then when I see how it hurts people, I get the chance to go back in step 8 and write about it, talk to my sponsor about it, and in step 9, I get to make an amends. And this is not a scary step, because if you have started in the first step and worked your way through 9, by the time you get to 9, you're ready, just like that algebra problem I was talking about. And then in step 10, I'm just going to start realizing where these things crop up. So every day, so I don't have to keep doing the same thing over and over. I don't have to keep repeating this. And I just see, like, damn it, I said something to that lady at the Starbucks today, and I shouldn't have said that, and I feel bad about it, because now I got a conscience, and it's not doused with alcohol. And so I can say, that didn't feel good, So next time I see her, I can say, hey, I'm sorry about what I said last time. I was just having a bad day, and, it's not going to happen again, or whatever it is. I mean, there's some really simple ways to clean stuff up. It's not this big, heavy deal. These steps are really designed to help us to come into a new way of living. And how do we know what that would be? Because it's new. It's new ideas. It's a new way of living. We've never done it. And we've never given it a chance. So, a lot of us are like, and I would say the same thing that, I heard before. It was like, when I was your age, I don't know if I would have wanted this, because I still had a lot of time to go out there and bang my head against the wall and realize, man, I got a thick skull. My mother always told me that, and I needed to have this stuff really proved to myself that, man, you cannot do this anymore. You're going to die. And there was times I wanted to die. I really honestly never thought I'd make it past 30. It's just a given when I was growing up. I just never thought I'd make it past 30. It never occurred to me that I'd be 60. Holy crap. What do you do when you're 60? But if you take it one day at a time, it just keeps getting better and better. And other people might look at it and go, yeah, that doesn't really look so good. And it's like, yeah, but you don't know what's going on in here, because the outside stuff is not indicative of the peace and the serenity that I've found from these programs, and the depth of relationships and the love. And I'm not talking about the romantic love. I'm talking about the kind of love where people are connected. And I realize, like, I really care what you think. I really care who you are and what you do. So I'm not just using you to get some liquor or some drugs or something. I'm not using people anymore. Like, I'm really interested in, like, what's it like to be on this world and be connected to other people and actually care about them. It just never occurred to me to do that before, because I was so busy trying to get something from somebody. I just used people. I never really cared about what you did, And I was okay with that. I'm an artist. I don't really care. I don't really want to be with people. I like being alone, There's a difference between being a loner and isolating. And for me, when I was drinking, I was isolating. When I was using other substances, I was isolating. I didn't want anybody there. I didn't want to share, to tell you the truth. The only time I was interested in other people is if, you had something, and then I was willing to share yours with me, And that's kind of how it worked. And then, so I'm going to go into step 10. And then in step 11, prayer and meditation. Prayer is just talking to God. Meditating is listening. They say, prayer without meditation is like ringing God's doorbell and then running away. You just chill out. Take some time, talk to God, get quiet, and then just sit there for a few minutes and give God a chance to answer. Give God a chance to work in your life. Don't be in such a rush to have it my way, because your way got you here. My way got me here. It didn't do so well. So I'm willing to just sort of quiet down and listen and wait and ask God, what do you think I should do? Because that creator, whatever it is that got us here, has a plan for our lives. But how would I ever know that? Because I'm just like running and gunning. I never stop to consider that I might be here with a purpose. And all of the things that I've done, and it talks about it, no matter how far down the ladder I've gone, that my experience can benefit somebody else. You don't know what a real high is until you feel like you've been of service to somebody else, and they come back and they say to you, wow, something that you said really helped me, or thank you for doing that 5th step with me. I feel like, it's something clicked, something's different, something is happening to me. And, that kind of a feeling of being of service to somebody else and to God, like, you have no idea what that feels like until you've felt it. So, heard it before from the other speaker, don't quit before the miracle happens. It's like, oh, how long is it going to be? I don't know. That's like saying, how much is an airplane ticket? Well, I don't know. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to sit? How long are you going to be gone? That's a stupid question. How long is it going to be? It's going to be as long as it takes. It takes what it takes. Time takes time. Some people get it quickly, some people get it slowly. And in the 11th step, we're going to stop and we're going to ask God to help us to understand this. And then in the 12th step, we're going to take it out there and we're going to pass this message. Because these steps are not so that I can be fat, dumb, and happy and sitting on my couch eating bonbons, watching TV, and now I'm sober. Isn't this great? I'm not doing this so that I get something out of it. I'm doing it so that I have something worthy to offer back to God to use in the service of others, which is to go out and help another alcoholic. Because there's people out there dying every day. I'm sure there's a lot of you that know a lot of the people that I know, a few of them that are not here this year, that were here last year when I was here. I hear every 2 weeks maybe about another alcoholic dying. And I'm all over the place, so I have a lot of people at a lot of different places that I hear from, and it's happening all over out there. And the only thing that I know is coming to meetings and working with others and doing these steps. It's the only solution I know, because I always say the answer is God. Now what's the question? Because we're always going to be talking about God. Call God whatever you want, it doesn't matter. But the answer is going to be your relationship with a higher power, because it's the only thing that's going to be able to help you when you're standing there looking at that drink or looking at that drug or looking at that thing that's going to take you down, because you know how it goes. Is it a girl that leads to a drink, that leads to a drug, that leads to a needle, that leads to, waking up in the coroner's office? I have a friend of mine in Jersey. He's got 3 toe tags. 3 toe tags that you get when you're in the morgue on the slab, declared dead from drinking. So how does that happen? It's like he's a real alcoholic, He's a real alcoholic because he drank himself to that point, So the fact of the matter is that, I'm going to carry this message, and the message is not that you don't have to drink again. The message is that there is a higher power that loves you and wants you back no matter where you've been or what you've done, and has a personal interest in you and wants to have a personal relationship with you. And it doesn't matter what you think it is or where it is. You just say that great alcoholic prayer, which is help, and then God, who doesn't make hard terms, comes up and starts this interaction with you, and you have the opportunity to start working these steps and to start working with other people. Your whole life is going to start to change. And I can't tell you how it's going to happen because it's different for everybody. But if you're interested enough and you've seen enough here and there's something here that you want, they say keep coming back. Well, why? I don't know. That's because that's what they say. And how does it work? I don't know that either, really. It works if you work it. What the hell does that mean? I don't really know. All I do is keep coming back because it works. And all I do is do these steps because they told me to. And the people that I've seen all over these years, the number one thing that stopped happening is they stopped going to meetings, they started isolating, they started doing it by themselves, thinking that they didn't need the meetings, thinking that they didn't need each other. And it's like, go ahead and do that. I did that. I tried it. Really, the fact of the matter is, it's so much better with we. It's so much better with you guys when we're together. It's more fun, it's more safe, it's more solid. And this idea of recovery is not just about not drinking. There's so much more to it, and it's so wonderful. I couldn't even begin to tell you how good it is because there's no words for it. So it's the kind of thing, like, you got to experience it yourself. It's like the Grand Canyon. You can go stand up there and on the edge of it and look in and go, whoa, this thing is amazing. Go, yeah, it's really cool, right? This is a great deal we have here. And it's like, you really want to experience things, then go into it. Go spend a little time down there and do the work it takes to get down there and do the work it takes to be there and then to come back up and to tell other people about it. Holy crap. Do you know what it's like to be down in that thing? You want to talk about, what we were talking about before, about serenity? You want to know what it's like to have your mind blown? And if anybody's never been to the Grand Canyon, you're like, what are you talking about? Like, no, seriously, you got to go see this thing, because no picture, no video, no story, 3D, what is that, IMAX is like kind of close, but still, you can't describe that thing to anybody. And that's just like this. You can stand around, you can go to meetings, go, yeah, it's pretty cool, there's some pretty cool things happening there. But when you surrender and you turn yourself over to the whole experience of Alcoholics Anonymous, and you dive in and you do the service, and that you do the fellowship, and you do the steps, then you're going to start to experience something that nobody could ever describe to you. So we can't give it to you. You got to come and get it. You got to want it. The people that need it, there's plenty of people that need it. It's only the people that want it are the people that get it. So I hope that there's something here that compels you enough to want to come back, to keep listening, because somebody is going to tell your story, something's going to click, there's going to be something that interests you enough to maybe look a little bit deeper and to get into these steps, because these steps are the way to get to a relationship with a higher power. The answer is God. What's the question? Whatever you have, it says in the 7th step, any other problem you could possibly have is going to be handled by these steps. But first things first, you got to get sober. Because as long as you're drinking, you don't have a chance. You don't have a chance to change your life. You're going to keep doing the same thing over and over. Step 2, insanity. I only got my personal experience to tell you that I tried it that way and I tried it this way. And now it's 20-something years later. You know, I've been in Al-Anon for 32 years, and I did 11 more years of research before I got into AA. And I'll tell you that I have no interest in going back out. I had a great time out there, but man, I just ran it into the ground. And now it just keeps getting better and better. Why would I want to do that? Why would I want to leave here? This is the best thing I ever found. I'm really grateful to be here. I'm really grateful that most of you stayed awake tonight and listened. And I am really grateful to be asked to speak tonight. So thank you for letting me share. Thanks.
All right. This has been a regular meeting of the Rarely Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. You're cordially invited to join us again next week. Please bring a friend. There are approximately 100 meetings of AA each week in the Prescott area. We advise you attend as many as possible, and we hope you will join us again soon. Can we get another round of applause for our speakers, Rosemary and John? All right. After the prayer, will the people who volunteered to do stuff do that stuff? And your court cards are on the back table.